Bella jumped out of the car, and I hated that I had to leave her there. She'd understand soon enough the necessity of it, but it didn't make it any easier to drive away. With a hard pump on the accelerator, I put as much distance between Billy and I as I could, as quickly as my car would allow. Part of me wanted to stay behind, to make sure Billy didn't do or say anything to upset her, but I knew no good could come of my staying and listening in. I trusted Bella would tell me later if he said anything too far out of line. I sped home, hoping Alice would be able to give me some reassurance about Billy. I was 2 steps through the door before she came bounding toward me. "Don't worry about it, Edward," she sang, far too cheerful in my opinion, given the subject matter. "Billy's upset, but he can't tell Bella anything she doesn't already know." "I guess," I said, feeling only minimally better. "He wants her to be careful, and he feels an obligation to look out for her because she's Charlie's daughter. As far as I can see, that's the extent of it." "Yeah, so far," I muttered, not entirely convinced. "Edward," she scolded like she always did when I doubted her abilities, "I believe you have more important things to think about right now." "Such as?" "Such as preparing for Saturday." "What exactly do you mean, preparing?" I asked nervously. "I thought you said I had nothing to worry about." "You don't. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do everything you can to make it easier on yourself. I already said I'd go hunting with you tomorrow afternoon." "I know. That isn't the only thing you can do, though." "What exactly are you suggesting?" "I know you've been spending the better part of your nights with Bella, but I've also seen how hesitant you are when you're near her. I think the best thing for you to do is turn yourself right around and spend every second you can next to her. Billy will only be there a few hours, then Bella should go right to sleep. I've already seen she's going to sleep very soundly tonight, she's so exhausted from not sleeping enough last night. It will be perfectly safe for you to be close to her, let her scent assault you so you can start to learn to block it out." "Alice, this is absurd. It's not like I can make myself immune." "Not completely, but I see you growing more desensitized the more time you spend with her, and now seems as good a time as any to start. More than that, though, I think it's important that you start to see you can be close to her, that you truly can handle it. Trust me, you'll thank me for this later." Then, with an aggravating smirk, she started reciting the states and their capitals in her head so I would have no idea what exactly I would be thanking her for. As much as my mind was telling me to argue with her, I couldn't deny that a part of me was all too willing to listen to her. She'd seen that Bella would sleep soundly, and even when she was restless, I'd been able to touch her softly without waking her. Maybe Alice was right. Maybe I did need to convince myself of my ability to be close to her. I waited, pacing, until Alice told me it was all right to head back. In seconds, I was running at top speed toward her house. I arrived just in time to see Billy's car driving away. I listened outside the window as Bella and Charlie went through their usual nightly small talk, and was relieved to hear nothing out of the ordinary. Either Billy had chosen not to give any sort of warning tonight, or at the very least he didn't say anything with Charlie around. When was I ever going to learn not to doubt Alice? When Charlie commented on asking Mike Newton to the dance, I felt the same ridiculous jealousy I always did when any other male was brought up. My tension eased as Bella's obvious frustration came out, and I reminded myself that it was me she was choosing to spend time with. After dinner, she trudged up the stairs and to her room. She opened a book, but I could see the fatigue taking over after only a few pages. With a deep sigh, she turned off her light and scooted under the covers. It was less than 10 minutes before her breathing steadied and I knew she was in a deep sleep. I waited for the sleep-talking to come, but she was unusually silent. Curious, and eager to test Alice's theory, I climbed inside the window and sat on the floor beside her bed. Thinking of what Alice had said, I took a purposefully deep breath as Bella breathed out, letting her scent fill my every sense. It was intoxicating, thrilling, yet terrifying. Through the pain, however, I could tell Alice was onto something. Each breath I took in this close proximity to her, felt easier than the last. Wondering just how far I could push myself, I leaned in until I could feel her breath on my face. I reached out a tentative hand and brushed the hair away from her face, reveling once again in its silky texture. Then, I gently touched her cheek and was excited to find that she didn't shy away from my touch. I moved my hand down until it was resting against her neck, right over her pulse. Feeling it beat against me was almost too much, but in the same moment I started to move away, she sighed my name. It was different than how she'd said it before, when I knew she was dreaming. This time, with no other signs that her subconscious was racing, it felt like she knew I was there. Completely enraptured, I stayed there for hours while Bella slept silently beneath my touch. It was somewhat of a shock when I saw the beginnings of daylight break through her window. With a triumphant smile, I quietly made me exit. The entire way home, I marveled at how I'd been closer to her for longer than I'd thought possible, and as the hours passed the pain became almost unnoticeable. It made me think our day alone together might actually be possible. "See, I told you," I heard Alice gloating from inside as I got into the Volvo. I rolled my eyes, but my grin didn't fade. I waited around the corner until I saw Charlie drive away, then quickly pulled into his parking spot. It was less than a minute before Bella was bounding down the stairs towards me. I smiled at the fact that she seemed as eager as I was to spend another day together. "How did you sleep?" I asked, unable to resist hearing her answer. "Fine. How was your night?" "Pleasant," I said nonchalantly, grinning in spite of myself. I wondered if I would ever be able to admit to her how pleasant all my nights had become since finding a new favorite way to spend them. "Can I ask what you did?" she said curiously. "No. Today is still mine." She sighed but didn't protest, and I wasted no time getting back to where we'd left off. I was endlessly fascinated by how excited she was talking about her life in Phoenix. She told me more about her mother and her friends, what she missed most about them all. By lunch, she was no longer showing any signs of embarrassment as I pressed for more details, and I felt a sudden bout of confidence, finally asking the question I had been the most interested in. "What about old boyfriends?" I asked as casually as I could manage. "Did you leave any broken hearts behind when you left?" Her face turned red and I wondered if perhaps she was about to tell me something I didn't really want to hear. After all, I was still getting used to the feeling of jealousy. I tried to keep my expression relaxed as I waited for her answer. "Not really," she finally said, though she was still blushing. "I mean, no one showed me much attention, which was pretty much how I wanted it. I guess I had a crush or two growing up, but I never felt compelled to do anything about it." Though I hadn't been expecting an extensive dating history, I was stunned by the notion that I was the first person she'd ever been truly interested in. While flattering, it was also unsettling. Was it just because of what I was? Was I a fascination to her, another magnet for danger pulling her in? "So you never met anyone you wanted?" I asked, watching her face closely. "Not in Phoenix," she replied firmly, her eyes staring unblinkingly into mine. Caught between what I wanted and what I kept telling myself I should want, I held her stare and let the battle inside rage. She was perfect, so fragile, so innocent, and as much as I wanted her, I didn't know how I could allow it. Nothing about me was deserving, yet I couldn't bring myself to leave. I wanted to keep her safe, but I still couldn't be sure that my being with her would allow that. I desperately desired to give her anything and everything she wanted, yet the only thing she seemed to want was to spend time with me. It was the world's most ironic paradox. "Don't forget about her truck. And please, stop worrying. I'm not a mind reader and even I can see your wreck." Alice's not-so-subtle commentary, along with a quick smile in my direction, interrupted my thoughts from across the room. "I should have let you drive yourself today," I said, forgetting for a moment that Bella hadn't heard Alice as I had. "Why?" she asked, surprised. "I'm leaving with Alice after lunch." "Oh," she said, frowning. Her disappointment might have been more entertaining had my mind not just been in such a dark place. "That's okay," It's not that far of a walk. I'm not going to make you walk home, I sighed. We'll go get your truck and leave it here for you.